don't want to. I'll let you. I guess I'll let you speak on that exactly your background, your history, so people can really know who you are.
Yeah, that's good. That's pretty good. I'm a retired Navy captain, astronaut. Flew in space 4 times, twice on the space shuttle, twice to the International Space Station, and recently spent almost a year on board the ISS, getting home in 2016.
Yeah, I'd much rather you go through that than me try to
Yeah,
roll through the list.
And I can't shoot a 3-pointer to save my life, so I think we're fair. We're even.
That sounds good. But just so that people understand the background, obviously there's been a lot of conversations and reaction to a podcast that I was on about 2 weeks ago, where we were having a kind of a just impromptu conversation, and it started to go down into some conspiracies, and I made a comment about the moon landing. It was a very unfortunate situation for me, because it's a comment that was made in jest and not to be taken seriously. But the headlines and the reaction kind of took a life of its own. And quite honestly, you were one of the first people that reached out, wanting to have a conversation with me in particular. And I think that was important for me to understand, one, the magnitude of, things that I say in my comments, and how much weight they carry, no matter if I, am joking or not. But to really honor that in every situation that I put myself in. And, for me to reflect on the last week, it's been one of those kind of situations where I've had President Obama reach out. I've had yourself, one other astronaut, that really want to educate me on how significant, the moon landing was. Obviously it was real, but in terms of, the sense of national pride, and how, that exploration for mankind has, pushed boundaries and limits on what is possible, pushed our imagination for, what is, what we can accomplish if we put, resources in our mind, and obviously guys like you who have dedicated their life's work to that industry, and pushing us forward as a society and a human race. And so I do not want in any way, shape, or form to demean the significant accomplishment that you and people that you work with on a daily basis were able to to make a reality. And so for that, I'm obviously genuinely sorry for how that came across, and I want to use this as an opportunity, obviously, to promote some positivity, some progress for us as we talk about, again, NASA's work that's ongoing today. And then you reached out to me and wanted to have that conversation. So I wanted to kind of put a question out to you in terms of, I don't have much background and knowledge and information on exactly the ins and outs of what goes on in NASA, kind of what your experience has been, and really just to start, kind of, why did you get into that profession, and kind of what's your experience been working for NASA and being an astronaut?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of familiar a little bit with these internet stories taking on a life of its own, because I said something recently that just went absolutely insane, and it's unfortunate, and it's really hard to walk back. And the other thing is, I actually get a lot of people when I do public speaking that'll bring these things up about the moon and the Earth being flat, and it's funny. I get it. I think it's funny at times. But what happens is then when people believe those things, they believe the other things that are more important, like climate change not being real, and vaccines, and 9/11 being a government conspiracy theory. So that's why I recognize, and I think this is so important to have a conversation like this, because it puts our it highlights science, like you said, and science is so important to our, to our kids, to our country, to our economy. So, I got involved in this as a pilot in the Navy. At first, I flew airplanes. I actually wasn't really a great student. I'm really a good example of a guy that didn't really do too well in high school.
Right.
But I found some inspiration in a book, and changed my life. and it made me think that I could do something much greater than myself. And I worked really hard, and I became an astronaut, and I had the privilege of flying in space a couple times. First time to the Hubble Space Telescope, long time ago. Um, Probably, you were a little baby when I flew the first time.
Yeah,
1999. And flew a second flight to build the International Space Station on the shuttle. But then, had the real privilege of my career was the time I spent for a long time in space.
It was about 2 years, right?
Yeah, I spent 520 days total, and then but 340 days at one time.
That's wild.
And what we've been able to accomplish in space is just incredible. We have incredible potential, and a group of people, like you said, that just dedicate their lives to this program that they believe so much in.
I think one of the good things that came out of it for me is I get to educate myself now. Obviously, having a conversation with you, hopefully in the next couple months, be able to go to the moon lab, the lunar lab, I should say, or at NASA, and see up close and personal, everything that was accomplished, over 50 years ago. Understand how I myself can articulate, the findings and the experience that again, that was accomplished there, and be able to explain to people that ask me, kind of what I believe in. So, what should I expect when I go in terms of the experience, the people that are there, the people that work there, and kind of getting immersed into the true history of our country?
Well, are you going to go before or after you play the Rockets? I think that's important. I think it's better that you go before the game than after. I think if you go after, you might not get as good of a reception.
Right, all the Rocket fans down there.
But and they're my team, by the way. So go Rockets! I'm from Houston. But what you can expect. I think you'll expect a great reception. The people there are wonderful. Texans are wonderful in general. The lunar lab is very interesting. You'll have to put on what's called a bunny suit, so you cover yourself up completely, because the rocks, they don't want to, even today, 50 years later, they don't want to contaminate these rocks. They're still doing science with them. And it's interesting. We got 800 pounds of those rocks from the moon, spread them out through universities all over the world. And they're 200 years older than any rock. Most of them are 200 years older than any rock on Earth. So, clearly they didn't come from Earth. And they came from the moon on the Apollo space program. So, you'll get to see all the stuff in the lunar lab. But then I'm sure they're going to show you other things that NASA's doing right now. We are gearing up to next year, maybe early the year after, launch 2 different types of spacecraft, a SpaceX vehicle to launch crew members into space to the International Space Station. This is the first time we'll be doing that on SpaceX. Boeing's building a similar vehicle to do the same thing. And that'll be the first time that we're launching people from the U.S. soil into orbit. We had space. Virgin Galactic actually launched 2 guys into space in a suborbital flight here a few days ago. But hopefully we'll be launching into orbit again.